Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Fiber Town. This is episode 3 of Fleece Wise, and I am following up on Claire of New Hampshire Knits. Wonderful introduction to sort of breeding, getting the wool on the sheep ready. And she talked to two amazing shepherds about how they raise their wool for hand spinning. And that was extremely interesting, and I learned a lot of things. And then Sarah of Fiber Trek, who gave us a bit of wool judging at the Common Ground Fair in Maine, as well as showing us how to roll a sheared fleece, which was super interesting. And then her little story of her wool politics, as she calls it. Very interesting. You should check that out if you haven't already. So my job, I'm third in line here, and I'm preceding Sarah of Yarns at Yin Hu, who's going to talk a lot about washing and preparing fleece. So my job is to talk about the actual buying, which is kind of a thrill because that's one of my favorite things to do. In fact, I have come out of fleece barns or tents or sales feeling a little bit like, what just happened? Because you get in these areas, the energy can sometimes be quite, there's a lot of excitement in the air, and I may have gone in with a plan and not followed through on the plan, and something totally different happens. So, and it has also been the case that, before I started buying sheep fleeces, I was intimidated by that big building full of trash bags full of wool, and it smelled different, and it was completely, nothing I had ever been comfortable with or knew anything about. So I have learned over the years, and I've probably been buying fleece for 4 or 5 years. I do have a record of my last 3 years of purchasing at Maryland Sheep and Wool, which is probably the biggest fleece sale. It is the biggest fleece sale that I've ever seen. So this is 2016, and I do have my 2014 with all my receipts from that year, including my fleece buying receipts. So we shall talk about all those shenanigans. So I have footage from Shenandoah Valley, which was just very recently, where I walk through the fleece sale. I talk about the organization. I talk about a little bit of etiquette. So let's just get started. Let's crack on. Let's look at 2014. Oh, I also have a lot of fleece spins and fleece FOs and fleeces that are in various stages of processing that I want to show you. I know you've seen some of them before, but it may have been several years. I've been doing this podcast for going on 4 years, so you may not have seen these things. Okay, so they are often very helpful people working at fleece sales. So if you are a newbie, find a friend who can help you, or failing that, find somebody who is working at a fleece sale. And often a good place to start is a smaller festival like Shenandoah Valley. I was approached by very eager people working the fleece sale, can I help you? Can I help you find a fleece? They want to enable you. At bigger places like Maryland, it may be a little more hectic. But in that case, if you're shopping for the first time, maybe go like on a Sunday afternoon when it's going to be a little quieter. All right, so you will see in Shenandoah how things are laid out. But I want to show you some real-life examples and talk as we go about how I've navigated the fleece sales. So you might be wondering, how much does a fleece cost? And I'm going to show you what I have paid over the years. So this is my first Jacob fleece, and this was 2014, and I paid $37.50 for a 2.5 pound fleece. So $15 per pound seems pretty standard. Seems like an industry standard. I've heard that from several people. Now you might come across a fleece that is exorbitantly priced. Now, there could be a few reasons for that. The first is that perhaps it is a fleece that the shepherd wants to take to the state fair to have judged there, but they also want it judged at the current fair, say Maryland Sheep and Wool. You will often find some fine wools especially that may be, exorbitantly priced per pound. And you may, if it's a large fleece, they may want $400 for it. In that case, if it's a fleece like that, they are probably pricing it that way to discourage anyone from buying it, because they maybe want to take it to a different fair to get another accolade or prize there. Some shepherds really are into showing their sheep for fleece and winning those prizes. So they may want to take that fleece to a separate festival and get another prize and be able to advertise their farm as, okay, we won this prize this year, this prize that year. So if you find a fleece that's crazy expensive, that's probably what's going on. Now, if you find, for example, and let me just show you the FO out of this fleece. You've seen it before. It is my Jacob Enchanted Mesa. Here it is. I love Jacob fleece. This was Merity. She was a ewe from New Jersey, and it's the American Jacob is a rare breed. It's polyserrate. It sometimes has several horns, which is super cool. 4, sometimes 6, I think. And it has different colors in the fleece, so it's very fun to play with. It's not difficult to process. I think it's a great first fleece, among other things. I may mention other fleece types that I think are good beginner ones as I go. So another instance where you might run into an expensive fleece is if it's a very, let me see, this one. I'm going to show you this one. Boom. $30 a pound. So we've doubled in color. This is a Gotland, which is incredibly difficult to raise in this country because you are not allowed to import animals from Sweden, which it's native to Sweden. It's beautiful colors. In fact, I have that particular fleece right here. And I spent a good part of my budget that year on this Gotland fleece. Look at the curls. It has not been processed yet, but this was something I had thought about for a good year, and I knew I wanted to buy from this particular shepherd who, raises a handful of sheep every year. She's a teenager, and she has these Gotlands that were very expensive. You have to import either embryos or I don't even know if you can do that, or semen, and build the breed up on similar Northern European long wools. So it takes years. It's expensive to import the raw ingredients, as it were, so you're going to pay more for a fleece like that. Okay, so about $12 is a good price to expect per pound. Oh, I don't know what this is a Gotland lock, lighter in color. Okay, so now what weight should you buy? How much fleece should you buy? You saw that the Jacob was 2.5 pounds. And for example, this Lincoln fleece that I bought in 2015, which was $10 a pound, which was a bargain, was, it was 6 pounds. So we have 2.5 pounds, we have 6 pounds. If you're just beginning to buy fleece, I would find one that is, if you fall in love, get a big fleece. It's okay. You can share it with a friend. You can do, some fleeces I've done weaving, I've made a sweater, I've made a shawl, I've done all 3 things with big fleeces. But a smaller fleece would not be a bad place to start. You need to keep in mind that you are going to lose up to 50%, possibly even more, on a fine wool in weight after it's washed, and that is accounted for in the lanolin that you're going to wash out. That does weigh a bit, as well as possible vegetable matter. I have bought one coated fleece, and that was yogurt. You guys, if you have been with me for a while, you've heard about yogurt. And this was yogurt. Let's see how much that cost. $14 per pound. So coated fleeces require a lot more work on the part of the shepherd. You have to have sometimes several size coats, and you change them out as the fleece grows. And that does discourage vegetable matter. And so this was almost a 6-pound fleece. I paid $80 for it. I'm still using yogurt. Yogurt has been a bargain. I bought yogurt in 2014, and here was I think this indicated that it was coated. Maryland sheep and wool is not a juried. Shepherds can submit their fleeces to be judged, but I believe that's the case. But not all of them have been judged, but they will let you know if it's coated, for example. Or if it's a Maryland fleece, they will definitely put different tags on the main tag. So, what have I made out of yogurt? Yogurt has gone into a weaving project, but I've also done some dyeing with yogurt's fleece. And this is part of the yarn. Yogurt was a Corriedale Border Leicester, something else. Romney. It's lovely and wonderfully, to me it's next to skin. But, as you'll see in the video, sometimes fleece judges will say that a particular wool is not next to skin, and you just have to use your own judgment. Okay, so if you do not want to do your own processing, you can absolutely send your fleece out to be processed. You will probably, to a small mill. And you have to find one that will accept, doesn't have a minimum weight. Some mills don't want to do a very small fleece or several. You might have a 10-pound limit. You might wait a long time to get it back. You could keep a little bit for yourself and send the rest to the mill. And then you get back lovely roving or combed top. So I think there's a fleece for every purpose out there. Another fleece, I think, or wool type, I think is a great beginner. Beginner fleece is, excuse me while I find it, just found another skein of yogurt, is Finn sheep wool. And it's another medium. Jacob is a medium, I would say. This is Finn sheep. This is one of the first fleeces that I processed. And I bought this at a small fiber farmer's market. And I spun it quite thin, and then I dyed it. It was a beautiful white, bright white. So, Finn, Jacob, I think those are great. Sometimes you'll find crosses that are very fun to process. I personally would stay away from a fine fleece for your first fleece. In fact, my very first sheep wool fleece was a Rambouillet cross. And I did not know what I was doing. I didn't get the water hot enough to wash out all of the lanolin. I have since made similar mistakes, thinking that I knew better, but I got the wash water very hot, but I left it in too long, and the lanolin, I thought it was clean, but as the wool sat, the lanolin resettled and made it impossible to work with. If I were to buy a fine fleece again, I would wash locks separately, and Sarah will talk more about this, and probably flick card them and spin them right away. So, or possibly send a fine fleece to a mill. Okay, so let's talk about some things to be wary of, and I talk about this a little bit in the video as well. When you're in the fleece barn, fleece is going to be in a big garbage bag. It's going to be hopefully rolled up nicely. You're going to have the tip, the butt is the cut end. The tip is the end that sort of hangs off the sheep. The tip end will be out with the cut end rolled up, as Sarah showed on her video. You don't want to root around too much and sort of destroy the form of that fleece, but you do want to do a few things. If you can open it up, please do that and take a look. If you can't, which is the case at Maryland Sheep and Wool, I believe, I've never been able to barely move in that fleece tent, let alone open up a bag and unroll the fleece. You want to look for a few things. To me, vegetable matter, also known as VM, is not a deterrent. If there were a lot of teasel heads, you know, the little burrs in there, that might be hard to work with. But vegetable matter really does mostly come out when you process. So not a great deterrent to me. That said, I have processed a Hog Island fleece, which was extremely high in veg matter, and that stuff never came out. Probably, you know, another thing to look for is scurf. Some scurf is probably in every fleece. You may not even notice it. It's basically dandruff. But if you have a super dandruffy fleece, like you could just see little flakes, oily flakes all throughout it, I probably would just keep looking. Now, another deal breaker for me would be a break in the fleece. And the way you see this is by holding up a lock to the light, and you probably would want to look in a few places. And, you know, you'll have nice, I'll show you an example. I don't have an example of a fleece with a break because I haven't bought one. I have seen one. So this is a Coopworth cross. So you'll notice that here's a lock. Okay. So we have crimp. We have nice continuity of crimp. If a fleece has a break, you're going to see a spot where the wool is thinner in looking this way, crosswise. So it's growing like this on the sheep, and if there's a break, you're going to see that the wool is not as thick in one spot. And it's a little bit like reading, you know, tree rings, right? You can see what's happened in the health of a tree, in the life of a tree, and the same kind of goes for wool. And it may be caused by a sickness, poor nutrition. If it's a ewe, she might have been breeding or nursing. And what happens with the break is that in processing the fleece, the wool is going to break. The wool is going to come apart. The integrity of the lock structure is compromised. So you're going to end up with, you know, little broken bits and neps and noils in your spinning. So another thing to look at is color, of course. So many cool colors. Jacob has various colors within the fleece. But you can get things, especially in, you'll notice this more in white fleeces, yolk and canary. So yolk is, you'll notice often that, oh, and I don't have an example here, but a white fleece might look really dirty. And yolk is just a mixture of sweat and lanolin, and sweat is also called suet. Lanolin is not sheep sweat. Lanolin is the grease, but sheep also sweat. So it's like a mixture of all these secretions together, and that washes out. And so it's just amazing. If you can't, you know, obviously you can't wash a lock in a fleece tent, but a white fleece is going to look quite different once it's washed. Another thing to look for is canary, and canary is usually just in one place instead of all over. And that's just another sort of like if a fleece, it's the sweat reacting with hot weather, basically. And canary won't wash out generally, but it will blend in as you process the fleece. It will blend in with other colors. And it's usually just a very faint, like a dark cream or a yellow, once you wash it. So that's what your fleece should look like. Just another vocabulary here, a wether is a castrated male. And I think sometimes that they kind of have the best life of the flock because all their job is to eat and produce wool. So they probably lead the least stressful lives of the flock because they're not breeding, which does stress a ram, and you'll get hormonal issues in terms of smell with the fleece. But yeah, look for a wether. A lamb's fleece can be lovely. That's the first shearing. And that's usually a lamb that's, you know, a year-ish, I would think. I don't think you would shear. I'm not sure about that. But, you know, little babies aren't getting sheared. So, what should your fleece sound like? And you'll often hear people talking about the ping test. And that's just another way to find a fleece that has sound lock structure. So you take your lock, hold it up to your ear. You should hear a high-pitched ping when you do this. Strong locks. If you hear crackling, that is a red flag. That can mean that, the fleece is tender or it doesn't have a sound lock structure. Now, tips. You kind of give some leeway to the tip of a fleece. Especially if the price is right. If you have tips that are tender because they are out there in the sun and they're the most weather-beaten, they're hanging out, they don't have the protection of the rest of the wool. This wool was hiding next to another lock like this. But this is getting the full brunt of the weather. So that's totally normal. This is a washed lock of Coopworth Cross. And you're going to see a difference in color. You may get a little bit of crumbliness. I probably would walk away from crumbliness unless the price was extremely good, because I've worked with a fleece before where the tips were tender, it was tippy. That's another thing people say. And it made neps in my yarn. You can just pull them off though. If I wouldn't have that be a deal breaker, but it just depends on your preference, what you want to deal with. And those neps in my yarn did bother me. So now a fleece should smell like barn and it should smell like lanolin. If you have a fleece that smells, I've smelled some that smell kind of yeasty or fermented. And Amy from Ross Farm, I asked her about this and she said, it probably was wet or it wasn't stored properly. The fleece might have been damp when it was shorn and then possibly not stored the way it should have been so it can breathe. If it's fresh, say less than 3 months old, it may be, and the price is good, it may be worth, washing it and see what happens. But if you get like moldy, a real super moldy smell, or like a green color, or green or blue or peach, that might be some bacteria in there. So you might want to watch for that. Okay, I think I've talked about, let's talk about some other projects of mine, and I hope that you'll see some more in the video of what I've been talking about here. Okay, so a fleece for every purpose, and I firmly believe that you do not need to process or work or treat with your fleece or use it for a purpose that everyone else thinks you should. You don't necessarily have to comb long wools and spin them worsted. That's been my MO, and it's made me very happy. And you don't necessarily have to say use a fleece where the judge said you should use it for this. You can make something completely different. I think I've shown you, let me just show you a few resources that I think you should absolutely get. Spinner's Book of Fleece by Beth Smith. This is a gem, okay? I would go get it. The Fleece and Fiber Source Book goes without saying, Deb Robeson. And I've taken a class with both these ladies. I can wholeheartedly endorse their knowledge and expertise. Those are my two go and get them now. So I've shown you, this is the Coopworth Cross I've been showing you. This is it in a little bat. This is, I'm going to do the Gotland first and then the Coopworth Cross. I also have this Gotland Lamb, and this is one of my regrets. I've had maybe 3 fleece buying regrets. Okay, I was so excited to see Gotland because I just had a thing for Gotland for a while. Still do, but I bought this Gotland Lamb. It was expensive because it's Gotland. And the locks are just so tiny. Look at this. I don't know if this little guy was shorn before its time. But everything else is great about it, except the length. And I'm finding that I need mega twist to keep that wool together. I don't like spinning with high twist. I like spinning woolen, moderate twist. So again, it's not a bad fleece. It's just not spinning the way I like to spin. So I have blended it with yogurt, which made a lovely gray. All right, so what else can I show you? This is my brand new FO. This was from my Rhinebeck 2015, was it 2014. No, wait. I don't know. No, it was 2015. It's a Rambouillet Corriedale cross. So this is the Portland pullover. I just finished it. I love it. I will be bringing it to Rhinebeck. Now, this was my very first fleece of any sort, and this was an alpaca. It was a cria, which is basically the baby of the of an alpaca breed. And this was a Guayaquilla, which is a shorter staple alpaca. And this is the Pine Forest baby blanket. Is that the right side? Nope, this is the right side. Here it is. This is so soft. I think I spun a 3-ply, and this was probably just a 3-pound Cria fleece that my parents got, and it was very inexpensive. They bought it from an Amish farmer in Pennsylvania. I think they paid $25 for it, and I got this lovely blanket and the experience of spinning an alpaca fleece, which is an interesting thought for a beginner spinner. There is no lanolin in alpaca, so the washing really doesn't have to adhere to a certain temperature. In fact, I didn't wash part of this fleece at all before I spun it, because the dirt in the fleece, because alpaca is so slippery, the dirt and grime kind of helped the wool to stick together. The downside of doing that was that every time I spun, there was dust and dirt everywhere on my wheel, on my lap. But you know what? Alpacas like to roll in dust. It's the price you pay for working with an alpaca fleece. I don't know if alpacas are coated. I think sometimes they are. So that would cut down on that. But if you do choose an alpaca fleece, dirt and dust is absolutely the norm, and you're not going to get away from it. They're just animals living their lives. So, you guys have seen my Enchanted Mesa. This has some Finn wool in it that was hand processed, as well as others. But you might also consider buying raw locks from a farmer of several breeds and doing something fun like that. This was a Cotswold cross. This was a Fleece to FO project. This is a Nanook. I love this sweater. Love it, love it, love it. Now, I think that's all I have as far as fleece FOs, but I do have some spins to share with you. This was a Shetland from the Ross farm, and Shetlands are small, so you might consider them approachable. You do have to be gentle in the washing. They will felt easily. So this was one sheep, and again, Shetlands have lots of fun colors. This was my Gotland lamb, carded with some yogurt. And this is going to be made into a vest. So much to knit, you guys. What else can I show you? Oh, well, I can show you this. I'll show you this on another podcast. And then my Lincoln fleece that I showed you guys, which I have sent 2/3 of it out to the world to some friends. So this is Lincoln, and this was a very long wool. So I carded it instead of combed it. And I've done some sampling, and I really love how it spins up from this preparation. So I'm just going to leave you with, before we go and finish our video, I'm going to leave you with a little story about how I got interested in buying fleeces and working with them and spinning them. And that was this community. Absolutely. My first years of going to Maryland Sheep and Wool, I would watch people walk out with trash bags full of fleece and think, what is their deal? That is just super weird. not for me. And, you know, that's kind of classic for me. But, you know, little out of the norm things like that pique my interest. And I started hearing people in the community, like on podcasts, like the Knit Girls and the Knit More Girls, talking about their fleece exploits. And then it just sounds interesting and you want to try it. At least I did. So I really hope that hearing a little bit about this stuff and from my other podcasty friends who are doing Fleecewise has piqued a little bit of interest in you if you haven't done this before, and even if you're thinking those people are crazy, who knows, maybe down the line you will be inspired to give this a go. There's a lot of expertise out there. You know, we all have our own experiences and expertise that comes from it. And there's so much more to be learned all the time. So, you know, I always look forward to the next fleece tent. All right, y'all take care.
So I'm at the back end of the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival, and I'm standing by the skirting tables here. These are skirting tables, but you can also just lay your fleece out and take a look. So here's how it's organized. So we have goat fibers, and this is a goat show, and look, we've got a first place. And the nice thing about this festival is that it's juried, so all the fleeces are really gone through. You get the breed, the price, the weight, evaluation notes, which are very useful. But sometimes I find that you need to take them perhaps with a grain of salt. So this was the first place. It was an Angora goat. And then over here we have camelids, so alpacas, guayacuyas, surreys. I don't know, I haven't seen any surreys. There are two types of alpaca. And, oh, you know what? This one right here I thought was beautiful. And they are, in fact, in garbage bags. This is standard practice. Yeah, so take dyes beautifully, intact blanket, and you call a camelid wool, a camelid fleece, you call it a blanket. It's pretty pricey for $85, 3 pounds. Lots of VM. I don't know, it seems quite pricey, but I think that the color is quite desirable for people who like to dye the wool. So then we have double-coated wools. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, some double-coated Shetlands. Ooh, a black Shetland. What do they say about this? Louise. Oh, this is a lamb fleece. Oh, not double-coated. Some Shetlands are, some aren't. Needs additional skirting. It's a bit poofy around the edges. So, I think the price reflects that. Although Shetland fleeces are quite small. This one is less than 2 pounds. So at the end of washing and the additional skirting, you're going to have possibly less than a pound. Here's a caracal from Redgate Farm. Definitely double coated. Look at that. Tog and Thel. Those are the names of the two coats, at least for Icelandic fleece. And speaking of Icelandic, here we go. There's a nice Icelandic. And some second cuts, they're saying. Variegated natural. That's beautiful. Okay, what is this one? Another Shetland. Needs gentle washing. Yes, it does. Shetlands need gentle washing. I found that out the hard way. And sometimes judges will give a recommendation for what you should knit out of it, or what kind of yarn you should spin. And this judge thinks that lace yarn would be a good idea. Again, under 2 pounds, $30, some second cuts. Looks like this judge, this is helpful, gives pluses and then minuses. What else do we have over here? This is probably more Shetland. Yep, beautiful. Oh, Jameson, like the whiskey. Wavy open crimp. This is a bigger fleece, 4.2 pounds. So then we have long wools. Let's see, lots of Gotland border Leicester crosses. Gorgeous to dye, okay. Vibrant crimp from butt to tip. Lustrous white. There's a Gotland blue-faced Leicester cross. Possibly spins well. That's not too informative. I'm sure it does spin well. A Gotland, staple length 5 to 7 inches. So it would be really good to open these up, and these are all pretty tightly closed up. I mean, you can open them and get a feel for what's going on inside the bag, and then you can take them to the skirting table to get a nice look. Lots of Romneys in here. More Gotland crosses. I like this. The shepherd is obviously very proud of this Gotland cross. And they put a nice lock sample there. How beautiful is that? Gorgeous. Is this this couldn't be a Jacob, could it? No, that's a Shetland. This is in the wrong place. Okay, and now the medium wools. Lots of white in here, my goodness. It's a black fleece. Now this one is a nice Florist. It's a Florist. $37. This is a down breed. Now they're saying this is a tippy fleece, so probably, and also this judge says it's not next to skin. Now that is subjective, highly subjective. Tippy. Let's see. Sorry about the camera handling here. So, tippy means that the tips are somewhat friable and might sort of break off and cause problems. I like the feel of this one. I'm tempted to open that up. Take a look. This one was an interesting one. Yes, this is a Tunas. Let's see, $45. Needs additional skirting. Kind of wish that weren't the case. And then, I was interested in this one, but then it says that there are tender areas. And in fact, when I opened this up a little while ago, and I did the ping test for some Tunas, it was crackly. You know, they don't, I talked to one of the volunteers, they don't take fleeces that have tender areas, that are tender in the middle of the lock. They do sometimes take fleeces that are tender on either end because you can cut that part off and still have a decent amount of staple. This is definitely tender on some of the tips. I don't see a clear break, but it was crackly instead of pingy when I took a lock off and put it next to my ear and sort of pulled on it. So, what else do we have here? Now we have the fine wools. Ooh, I am so drawn to chocolatey wools. Let's see. So we have Marinos. Oh, this one was not coated. Lots of second cuts, unfortunately, but not a lot of VM for an uncoated fleece. Another Merino. Not hard wearing. Yeah, well, ply it tighter. And don't make something that's going to get hard use out of it. So it's a Morit color, very defined crimp. $61 for a 4-pound fleece. And they're very greasy fleeces, the finer wools, and you're going to get a lot of loss after you wash it. Ooh, what's this? Saxon Merino. It's a local farm. A lot of local farms, obviously. Jacketed. Okay, so that's the same as coated or blanketed. Great for dyeing. High grease. Again, ooh, over 6 pounds, $93. Ugh. Blocky, gorgeous crimp. Blocky locks, gorgeous crimp. Lovely. That is very pretty. I need to resist the urge to buy fine fleeces. I don't have a good track record with the washing. Cramboulet and Finn cross. Cross did not receive best qualities of each breed. Oh, but still $78. Okay. You know, I wonder if they could. That's what the judge says. I wonder what the farm thinks about it. So again, I wouldn't discount a fleece like this. Oops. I had bought a fleece from this farm, actually in Maryland last year. Let's see. Ooh, it's quite lovely, really. So a longer staple length than a typical Rambouillet because of the fin, which is a medium wool, medium with a longer staple. That's gorgeous. I love the color. I'm going to listen to it. It has a nice ping. My family is here. They're calling me crazy. Hello, people. And I do look silly talking to my phone. This is a really pretty fleece. I wouldn't just discount it because of what the judge says, that's for sure. I would take it and open it up. Ugh. California Variegated Mutant, which is the colored version of Ronald Dale. Lovely. Ooh, pricey. Any final uses? What is this guy here? Cormo. Let's see, what else do we have? More CVM. I'm going to the other side. I might see you guys later. Here's another view. And that's my friend Angie. Say hi, Angie. I'm back at medium wools, which seems to be my favorite spot in the fleece shows. Oh, $115 Romney. And no judging notes. Wonder what's going on here. Oh, so pretty. Colors. Oh, beautiful. What's this? This looks like a BFL. Those little locks. It is a BFL cross with a border Leicester. What do they say about this one? There's different types of locks for sure here. Small areas of scurf. Mill process will remove. Very spinnable beauty. Indeed. Gorgeous. Looks like the locks poof out towards the butt end, and they're very BFL-like towards the tip. And then I know I saw areas where the locks were less skinny. What else do we have? Oh, another Tunas. Some tenderness. Oh, again, a lot of these Tunas fleeces are coming up as being slightly tender. I don't want to go there. Mendenhall. Never heard of this. Mendenhall? That seems like it might be misspelled. Let's just moor it down here. Another Clun Forest. Now, again, this judge says it's not next to skin. I do beg to differ. I would totally make a sweater out of this. And the down breeds have a lot less lanolin in them. They will not felt. So if that's your aim, don't get a down breed, but they're great for sock spinning. Spinning for knitting socks. It's a pretty Tunas. I wish you guys were here. It smells like funnel cakes and sheep's wool. What the heck is a carrot breed? Oh, California red sheep. CA red, not carrot. That's a breed you don't see very often. I apologize for my camera handling. I do prefer it when shepherds use see-through plastic bags rather than gray or white. Sorry, I had to get out of the way. There's somebody coming down the aisle. This is gorgeous. Look at that. It's a Romney cross. Beautiful. All right, I think if I had seen a Jacob that spoke to me, I might be inspired to take it home. But I don't. I see lots of nice wools, but none that I have to have given what is waiting for me at home. So, and soon at Rhinebeck. And we will see you all at Rhinebeck in the Fleece Barn there. Can't wait.